and welcome to PEMA TV.
Welcome to Fridays, March 14th, 2014. Already.
Yep, almost St. Patrick's Day.
Yikes.
Lots of green. But it's also like coming up on the summer solstice will be in here in how long? A couple months?
Summer, yeah. June.
What happens in springtime? I forget.
Spring solstice.
Is there a spring solstice?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. They got one for every month, every season?
Yeah.
Man, the pagans, they think of everything.
What day was I born on?
I don't know.
Spring solstice.
20th?
Spring solstice.
20th of March?
Spring solstice.
At 45 a.m.?
7:41.
That's close. Not many other guys could even get that close. I would get some kudos for that.
But what you omitted to mention was as of the 18th will be our PEM's 4-year anniversary.
That's like forever in there.
The 19th, the day after that, is PEMATV's 5th year.
Yep. Amazing. We're either slow learners or you guys actually like us.
Or you tolerate very well.
And speaking of things that people like, you need to go on to MetalunaBoutiqueandStones.com. Check out the great items that Kim has there. Right now, I'm going to show you just a partial picture of her herb and spices collection.
Yes, that is one half.
Yeah. So you probably carry what, 85 altogether?
I think I have 85 different herbs, and then I have 4 or 5 spell kits, and now I have the whole herbal solutions. I have the oils for the 4 elements, and I have a lot of the spell oils too now.
So be sure and check that out. But without further ado, because people get to hear from us all the time, and I know people on Facebook get tired of seeing me, we want to bring on our guest tonight because we love her to death, because she's cute as a button.
She is.
2, she can talk about just about anything intelligently with just about anybody, except for the people that aren't intelligent, and you can't help them at all.
Right. And 3, she introduced me to the coolest Sharpie click marker ever.
Yeah, that's true. Tonight we are talking with Dr. Rita Louise. Dr. Rita Louise, how are you?
I'm good, but I'm laughing about the click marker thing.
Hey,
but it is true. It is true, and it was hot pink.
And after you let me borrow it that day, I had to rush out and get my own.
And
what color did you get?
I got the black ones, but it was a 2-pack, so it was a good deal.
Okay.
And real quick, let me get this out of the way. Normally, I can fit our guest graphic all on one deal. I can't do that with Dr. Rita. I can put her.
Are you trying to say I have a big head?
No, I'm trying to say that you have a lot going on.
It's your websites, not your face.
So if you would, be sure to take a look at www.soulhealer.com. Her radio show, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that, justenergyradio.com. And AppliedEnergeticsInstitute.com. Did I butcher that too bad?
Nope, that was perfect.
Awesome. What have you been up to? Because the last time we saw you was last October, and I know a lot of things have been going on. Or November.
Well, apparently she didn't want to answer that question.
I'm sure we'll be getting her back here just shortly.
Hey.
Hey, gotta love that. So, the last time we saw you was in November, early November?
Yeah, and, I would like to say that all this really great stuff has been going on. I've written 4 new books, all kinds of good stuff, but that would be a lie. I'll share the truth. The truth is that for some reason my site got hit bad by the last Google update, and I have been frantically redesigning web pages and moving everything to WordPress. That was a hiss.
Yes.
And going through this whole learning curve of figuring out WordPress and reinventing everything. So that's what I've been doing for the last few months. But, sometimes you go and things come crashing down around you, and what comes out the other side is actually bigger and better and even cooler. And I think that's how it's all, the cards are going to lay out. Thank God.
Yeah. People, you have to keep your eye on the prize, and you have to be willing to do the work in anything. And some people some people have trouble with that part of it. Have you I know Kim's got the book right here. One of the books that you have written.
I have my autographed book from Rita Louise.
Is The Power Within.
Mm-hmm.
How many books have you actually penned, Rita?
4. So The Power Within was actually my first book. And then I wrote Avoiding the Cosmic 2x4, then Dark Angels, An Insider's Guide to Ghosts, Spirits, and Attached Entities. And then my latest book is Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, which actually did get picked up by a mainstream publisher and will be re-released as the E.T. Chronicles in October,
Nice.
I think.
Very nice.
I know, it was sweet. It was like, okay, I'll let you pick it up.
Well,
So-
I got your book, The Power Within, a Psychic Healing Primer, in an auction.
Well, aren't you special?
I was, because it was last year at the Unity Fest.
Ah, cool.
So all the money went to breast cancer. So
Hey, I got a psychic reading from Misha, so it was all good.
Yeah. How'd that go for you? Was it informative?
Actually, there was an issue that I had been struggling with for months, and the way she framed how I was reacting to the issue was like, oh my God. Because, she was basically relaying to me things that I've said to my clients over and over and over and over again. And it was, so I knew exactly what she was talking about, but it let me shift. It let me just kind of let go of what I was holding on to and move on, which was great. I mean, that was what I needed to hear. And the funniest part was, doing psychic readings is what I do. I have a lot of friends that are psychic, so if I have issues going on, I just call them up. It's like, hey, can you take a look at this? And we were at that event, and they were offering the psychic reading, and the next thing I knew, my hand was flying in the air. I mean, I was like, what the...
yeah, but every once in a while, having in this field, we all have like a lot of psychic friends, but every once in a while, you just kind of need that outsider's insight on it.
Well, plus and Rita, tell me if this is true, most extremely spiritual people or psychic readers, mediums, life coaches, whatever you need to put on them. Haven't you found that they're people too, and they're hard-headed and don't want to change, and everything that they complain about, sometimes they're doing the same thing sometimes?
Well, I do think that that's true, but I think also in the same breath, if they can recognize, and have somebody reflect back to them what they're doing, in a place where they understand, it's like, oh, okay, they can change very quickly, if they understand.
Right.
And that's what that session did for me. It was just like, oh.
Kind of a forest for the trees kind of thing.
Yeah, sometimes. For me in that situation, it definitely was, there were a lot of feelings involved that were hurt. My feelings were very hurt. And she reflected back how I was responding with my hurt feelings and was like, screw that. I'm just going to let that go. So it's all good. So, yeah.
That's a good thing, though.
No, it was a very much needed thing,
Right.
because I was kind of moping around in my own mopey kind of way. So,
and one thing I want our viewers to understand, your breadth of experience in the spiritual arts is quite broad. But one thing that you do that a lot of people really, really shy away from, but you still step up and do, is you are a medical intuitive.
correct. And, and it's interesting. I had gone to the Berkeley Psychic Institute and studied with them. And after graduating from their program, I would go and work different events and would share a booth with a good friend of mine that I went to school with, who at this one event, she was like halfway through chiropractic school, 3/4 of the way through chiropractic school. And we were working on this woman, and she had this big back issue. And I went through this phase because my back was really messed up. And I went through this phase where if I was working on someone who had back issues, it would just make my back start to really hurt. I'm very kinesthetic that way. And so I was having a hard time working on this lady. So I'm like praying that my girlfriend comes back because she went on a quick break. And she finally came back, and I'm thinking she's going to work on this woman's back. And she worked on all kinds of things but this woman's back. And she didn't even think to look in her body. And for me, it was just a very natural thing to look in people's body, to see what's going on, to start adjusting stuff and tweaking things and fixing them, making them right, you know, which caused me to go back to school to get my degree as a naturopath. So,
right. And you are a doctor, right?
PhD doctor.
PhD of what? Just so our viewers know.
Natural health counseling. So I'm a naturopath, so you get to call yourself a doctor, and then I have a PhD in natural health counseling.
Nice. Have you run across any? I guess the only way I can ask this: are you like a walking X-ray machine? Do you have like the cool glasses that used to be in the comic book, or?
Well, you know, I have said that, and people have asked me, you know, where can I get a pair of those? Right. But yeah, I mean, I look inside people's bodies and I see, you know, issues that are going on. You know, and it's, for me, you know, I'm very visual. And so it's not like, you know, I walk through the mall and see, you know, body parts falling on the ground and stuff like that. I mean, I really have to look at the different organs to kind of tie in on what's going on. You know, so I will get people that will call and say, well, I thought you're supposed to tell me what's the matter. And it's like, well, I can. I said, you know, but we have a choice of how we can spend our time. I said, you know, I can go through all of your body parts until I find what's the matter. I go, but that's going to eat up our entire session. Or you can tell me where your owies are, and I can go from there. You know, so if you tell me, well, you know, I have a lot of digestive disturbances, you know, I burp a lot, I have pain here, that's all I need. Just kind of point me in a direction, and we can focus our time and attention on that one area, and then whatever comes up from that, versus me looking at your ears and going, oh, well, you know, you have a hearing imbalance. Well, that's probably really not what you're calling me about. But I have to look, because that might be what the problem is. I don't know.
Well, and I would assume that one of the great advantages of being a medical intuitive is that you don't get the "why does my girlfriend not love me anymore" kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I get that too. No. You know, but, you know, my belief is that when people experience illness, you know, especially if it's chronic illness, it's because there's something going on inside of them, that there's some conflict that is looking for expression, and it's expressing itself through the physical body. You know, and so when I'm poking around on your kidneys, I might be talking about some resistance that you have in your life, or how you're using your will and your power to move forward, but the rest of you, your psyche, really wants a break. And then you wonder why you have, you know, adrenal dysfunction, or you're fatigued all the time. It's because you're pushing yourself. You know, and so there's what's going on in the physical body, but in my opinion, you know, the majority of illnesses, there is some aspect of ourselves that is in conflict as well. That's in distress. In distress.
We have a question in the chat room.
Yeah, you were saying I can look in your ear, and Cynthia asked, like Edgar Casey did, through guides, or another way.
Okay, so Edgar Casey was kind of like a remote viewer, and there are two ways remote viewers work. One is using that paper, and the other way is to go into a light trance and have somebody ask you questions. The way that I work is I'm a clairvoyant, and I'm very kinesthetic, and so I will literally work my way through a body. So I start at the top of the head, I look at your brain, I look at your eyes, I look at your ears, I look at your sinuses, and basically, you know, if I'm just doing a cold reading, give you a physical examination, looking at every part of your body. Because visually, you can, if there's an area that's inflamed, or if there's an area that's under-energized, you can see it from an energetic point of view. If there's pain somewhere, being kinesthetic, it always reflects in me. So if I would work with people that had back issues, my back would start to hurt. If I'm working with someone that has a kidney issue going on, they have a kidney infection, I'm poking around on their kidney, now the middle of my back starts to hurt. I mean, it's interesting. It's different, but I'll tell you what, it's always right. So
Kind of like that episode of Star Trek, the old Star Trek, where the man and the woman are on the same deal, but the woman can take away all his disease and his aging. Is it kind of like that?
I only wish, kinda, but no. I mean, because we're just really talking about looking at it, not getting rid of it per se. I mean, medical intuition in its truest form is a diagnostic tool. You know, so it's like getting a CAT scan or getting an X-ray. It's a diagnostic tool. It's not necessarily a fixing tool.
Right. But you could also then suggest, depending on what you detect, you could suggest a homeopathic way for them to correct what is wrong with them.
Correct.
Or tell them, get your ass up and go get to the hospital, or whatever the situation may be.
Whatever. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Do you find yourself when you're out, say you're out?
I'm just going to answer no. I already know what the question is. Ooh. No, I'm very good at turning it off.
Okay.
Very good at turning it off. And I think it's because I was apparently, and I did not know this till I was an adult, very psychic my whole life and didn't know it. And I came from a big family and I learned how to turn it off. You know, and so when I'm in session, I turn it on, and when I'm done,
Well,
it's off.
That was very close.
Oh, okay. Ooh.
Well,
Okay.
What I was going to ask is, you're out and say shopping with friends or out to lunch with friends, and they're in the restroom, so you're sitting on the bench. Do you find yourself getting bored and just like zoning in on someone?
No. You know, and maybe it's because no. I mean,
See,
I don't.
I would.
I don't do that. But if you ask me a question, so if we're like, having lunch, and you're like, well, what's with that guy over there? Then I get totally nosy.
Okay.
So I mean, before I went back to school to, when I was just doing straight psychic readings, I just wanted to be Rita the psychic chick, and we would talk about your relationships, and I would, talk about whoever you were in the relationship with, because we could gossip. It was really fun, and I like that. But I mean, I do that somewhat because, we'll have relationship issues come into the middle of the reading space. But it's really not the same. But I kind of like to gossip.
Me too. But see, I don't know that I'd have, I'd be sitting there and I'd just get bored and like, okay, there's a little old lady, and I would not have the self-control not to. Not that I would walk up and say, oh, by the way, I don't know you, but your liver just failed. No, I wouldn't do that. But I think it would be entertaining for me because I'm warped that way.
And see, I don't. and I think, there's a certain amount of like etiquette, and I'm not nosy that way. I mean, I like to gossip, but I'm not nosy. I don't know why.
Well, I think I'm naturally nosy because of where I grew up. I mean, in St. Louis, you hear a siren, you're out the door. The tornado warnings go off, you go outside, not down to the basement. It's just our nature to be nosy, I guess, up there.
Questioning.
Yeah.
Most people from Missouri are very, it's called the show me state. So you can't just tell them something, you got to show them.
Yeah, we went proof on everything.
Dr. Rita, one thing, some people hear the word homeopathic, and they, right when they hear that word, they kind of shut off. Could you give our viewers a little background on exactly what homeopathic medicine is and can be?
Okay. I mean, I'm not a homeopath, so I definitely am not an expert in this area. But homeopathy works by the idea of vibration. So, for example, you can have a tuning fork and you can bang the tuning fork and you might have another tuning fork across the room and it will start to vibrate. And it's because it works by resonance. And so homeopathy works on this idea of resonance. and it's really a very interesting science. So the earliest, excuse me, homeopathic remedies were actually made from the person's own body. So let's say I had a cold, and this is going to sound kind of gross, and I have a really bad runny nose. And so what they would do would be they would take a little of your mucus and then make this remedy from the mucus. And they would take like 1 drop of it and put it in 100 drops of water and then potentiate it. Basically, they vibrate it. And then they take 1 drop of that and put it in 100 drops of water. And each time you do that process, it increases the strength of the remedy. And so, I mean, they don't do that anymore, or, you know, unless you're a very classical homeopath. But it works by vibration. And so there are parameters that you really need to meet, you know, like you're not supposed to eat caffeine or sugar. Some people's bodies actually respond very well to homeopathic remedies. Children in particular respond very well to homeopathic remedies, and they're non-invasive. So you can take a whole bottle of homeopathic remedy and swallow it and notice no ill effect. But it works through repetition and over time. And so they really are a good modality. One of the things about homeopathy, which is why I'm not a homeopath, is that there are hundreds of remedies, and they tend to be very specific. And I can't memorize anything for some reason. And so it's just really not, it's not a match for me. How's that?
Well, let me
you know, I'm much more of an herbalist, you know, and, you know, being a naturopath, and let me just back that up. A naturopath is anybody that works with non-invasive techniques. And so doing energy work, you know, Reiki or EFT or something like that, therapeutic touch, can fall under the umbrella of naturopathy, working with herbs and supplements. Telling someone to go climb in the bathtub with Epsom salt is actually would be considered a naturopathic remedy. Telling somebody to, you know, eat some chicken soup would be a naturopathic remedy because it's a non-invasive way to stimulate the body to heal.
And why does chicken soup work? I've never figured that out.
I don't know. I mean, I think on some levels it makes people feel homey.
There you go. Well, the body has an amazing ability to heal itself.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Well, how would you, I mean, just so our viewers would know, so when they contact you for a reading, what would be, let's say you found something wrong with somebody's, I don't know, would you be able to detect a problem like cholesterol?
I mean, I am able to identify if there are blockages in the arteries.
Okay.
You know, not necessarily, I don't know that I would ask. You know, when you do intuitive work, it's really about the questions that you ask and the questions that you internalize. You know, so just off the top of my head, I don't know if I would ask, you know, do they have a lot of fat floating around in their bloodstream? But what I would look for is, do they have a buildup of cholesterol in the arteries? Because really that's what we're worried about, is the buildup. You know, if the fat didn't create the buildup, then it wouldn't be a problem.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess, and you're observant too, to the point to where if somebody walks in and they're eating, they just finished throwing a Whopper wrapper in the trash and they're sucking on a big 42-ounce drink of, you know, sugary soda, and then they say, well, I feel sluggish all the time. That kind of gives you clues too, right?
Well, you know, sometimes you just don't even need those clues. You know, when we eat poorly, the body, I mean, one of the things that I see in so many people is that we're just toxic. I mean, we are just toxic people in the United States. Many of us don't eat very well. The food we eat isn't very pure or clean. And I have a lot of clients who, you know, choose to eat organic food, you know, do that whole thing. And even with them, they're not, they seem kind of toxic as well, you know. And so I think it's just endemic in the United States that we don't live very healthy. And the food sources that we have are not very healthy and very good for us.
Right. And a lot of that has to do with how stuff's advertised too. That's I mean, that's a whole wormhole we could go down for days, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. But, but if somebody's eating organic food and free range chicken and, or they're a vegetarian or, whatever their thing is, you would think that their bodies would present as being pretty toxic free, but that's really not the case. I mean, they look better than a lot of people, but not necessarily that great. It appears as if there's not a lot of nutrition, even in the good foods, the expensive $8.99 a pound for a little bag of cherries, that you can go and buy.
Well, isn't there so much stuff floating around in the air that even the organic is not really organic anymore?
I mean, there's what's in the air. One of the things that has become a concern with a couple of my clients that live in California is how much radiation is in the food that's being grown there.
Mm-hmm. Right. And especially the seafood on that coast.
Well, I mean, but they're talking about stuff that's grown in the ground, because the water's coming from somewhere, it's in the air, and then the rain drops it on the ground, and so it's getting into the soil, and the cows eat the grass, and we drink the milk or eat the cheese, it's just passing through the food chain.
Yeah. All the way from Japan too.
All the way from Japan.
A lot of people don't understand. I'd rather just get cheap little toys from over there. I don't know about you. They can keep the radiation. Have you noticed a more accepting nature from people for other than standard Western medicine answers for things? Has that become more acceptable with people?
With people looking for alternatives?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Looking for alternatives and probably healthier ways of doing things, because I think we'll both agree that major drug companies don't create cures, they create customers.
Well said. I mean, I think there are a lot of people that are looking for alternatives. I completely agree with that statement. I feel that a lot of people are tired of being spoon-fed medications. And, they go in because of this and they leave with a bag of pills. And I think more and more people are starting to realize the implications of taking medications that aren't specifically needed for long periods of time. I think it's interesting, drug companies did that whole, and I mean, they're still doing it, advertising campaigns on TV, get this or get Celexa or get that. And then you listen to the contraindications and I'll go, why would anybody want to take that?
Yeah,
Why would anybody want to take that?
I'd rather have short eyelashes than thunderous diarrhea, you know what I mean? I'll take the short eyelashes.
Or, if in 4 hours, my face bloats up and I can't breathe, it's like, well, maybe I just don't even really want to take it in the first place. So I think that there are a lot of people looking for answers, but my feeling is, and I'm just going to be a little blunt here, I think if we ate better, I mean, not that our food is great, but if we ate better and to try to take better care of ourselves, then our need to go to the doctors would be less. And people tend to be pretty resistant to change, to not going and getting that Big Mac and the big old giant Coke on a fairly regular basis.
Well, we're innocent on that one. We haven't had a McDonald's in like 6 years. But when it comes to a lot of the medicines, unfortunately, now some of the side effects they're calling for are actually worse than what you're trying to get rid of.
I mean, I had a woman come to me, and I will never forget this. And her complaint was that she had dry eyes. Mm-hmm. And, and I mean, it happens, there are issues with our tear ducts and whatever, and I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm not finding anything, to report other than there wasn't a lot of moisture.
Right.
And then she complained about something else that had to do with dryness, and I'm looking and looking and I'm not finding anything. So finally I asked her if she was taking medication. Well, she was taking medication for urinary incontinence. And I said, well, you know what that's supposed to do? It's supposed to dry you up. And she goes, well, yeah. I said, well, you know, that is creating all of these other problems. She's like, well, I don't want to not take that medication. I'm like, well, then I guess you're going to have to live with the side effects that it's creating.
Right.
She didn't like the answer. And it's like, sorry.
Well, that's like what they gave me a cholesterol medicine that gave me bronchitis.
Oh yeah, that was ridiculous.
It didn't do me any good to, you know, try to lower the cholesterol when I can't breathe and I'm coughing 90% of the time.
And I've talked about this on here before too. When I had my heart attack, there's 2% of population, the schedule or whatever you want to call it, the 3 or 4 drugs that I was given. There's 2% of the population that react with almost suicidal thoughts. And I'm an overachiever, so of course that applied to me. So, I mean, what's the point of having drugs that are supposed to help you when they just did a life-saving thing for you that make you want to end it? But see, they never tell you.
But see, they would just give you an antidepressant on top of that to take care of your depression.
Yeah, and if the antidepressant happens to cause a little ED, well then here's a Viagra. And if that lasts more than 4 hours, I'm not calling the doctor, I'm calling my friends. I'm bragging about that. But
That's right.
But I mean, seriously, people don't quite understand that. And I mean, me personally, my mother at one point in time, they thought she had lupus, and she was completely misdiagnosed. But she got up to 76 different kinds of medication a day, and half of what she was taking was to deal with the side effects. She was having to take stuff to deal with the side effects, to deal with the combination side effects. It was ridiculous. Then they diagnosed what she had properly and took her off of all but like 2 or 3 of the medications. She lost the most weight she ever had, looked the best she'd ever had her whole life, lived another 10 years.
Well, I mean, and the joke is, and I've been hearing increasing number of stories about this, is I had actually a gentleman on the air a couple of weeks ago, and he's 80 years old and takes no medication. I mean, he's a natural health guy. And but he was having a heart issue and went to the doctor, and they were like, well, you know, write down the medications you're taking. He goes, well, I don't take any. They're like, well, no, write down the medications you're taking. He's like, I don't take any. You know, and there's this kind of belief that if you're 40 and above, you should be on some kind of prescription medication. And it's like, really? I mean, that's just a scary thought.
It used to be our grandparents that would sit around with their friends and talk about medications, and now it happens, you know, at the workplace. You know? I mean, it is. I cannot agree any more wholeheartedly with you that we are just toxic.
Well, I mean, there's, you know, we're toxic, and if we raise our children, this is, you know, don't send any mean cards or letters. You know, if we raise our children and our children are toxic, you know, now they don't have good nutrition, and now they reproduce, you know, but their eggs and sperm aren't really that good because they didn't have nutrition, you know, then we just pass on those bad genes. You know, I get a lot of people that go, well, what about all the children that are born with, you know, with cancer or born with, you know, some kind of genetic anomaly? You know, is that, you know, they're paying, you know, for karma? And I'm like, no, it's because we don't take care of ourselves, and then we reproduce, and what do we expect?
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
But neither one.
Not a very popular opinion, though. You know what I mean?
No, but it's very true, and it's scary when you think about it, because when you start talking about depleting the gene pool. Well, let me throw this in here real quick, just before I forget to say it. Except for stupid people, because they'll always be fertile. Stupid people have great sperm and great eggs. Like I got to get that out there. But I mean, you're talking about depleting the gene pool to the point to where normal will become the abnormal, and you know, mutations and deficiencies and, you know, what we would consider, you know, bad things happening to a body, that will become the norm.
Well, but unless we have the technology and the medical care to keep up with it, you know, it's just going to become this really bad thing. I mean, if you think about it, if a child is born with some kind of a heart defect and they do neonatal surgery when the baby's 3 days old, and then 20 years later, this baby that was born with a defect has a child, it's like, are they passing, that defect or the potential of that defect along, or an inherent weakness in that organ along? We don't really know, but it just gets perpetuated.
Well, and if there's a family history of something, they tend to over medicate the next generations.
Mm-hmm.
Because my mom contracted polio when she was 4, so my brother and sisters and I all got like 12 doses of the polio vaccine. My daughter got 28. My granddaughter's 5. I have no clue how many they're going to make her drink down before they finally decide, okay, it's out of... And it wasn't genetic to begin with.
Well, aren't some of the great master diseases, aren't they coming back in an almost unstoppable forms? I mean, look at what happened with the bird flu and the swine flu. I mean...
Well, but are those organic or are those man-made?
Well,
we don't really know.
Man-made, but also our overprescription of antibiotics is going to breed strains of, of viruses and stuff or not viruses. It's going to breed
the bacteria.
Bacteria. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to create a bacterial strains that we can't treat.
Well, I mean, that's already happening.
Yeah.
And the part that gets me is I don't take antibiotics. I mean, every so often, like I had my wisdom teeth taken out, and it's like, okay, so I took the antibiotics for 3 days. And it's like, well, I'm not really feeling any kind of infection, so screw that. And, so every so often I actually will take them, but not the whole prescription. And I feel like, okay, so I'm protecting myself, but I haven't quite figured out if there's some really rampant strain of bacteria that comes along, and have I protected myself because I haven't kind of worked through, I kind of think of like AIDS medication, there are very basic ones that they'll give, and then they can get stronger and stronger and stronger as the disease progresses. But if you can stay on the lower dose, the lower amount, your life expectancy can be actually a very, very long time. And so it just makes me wonder, well, if, bird flu does come here, would I be more protected because I hadn't worked through all the different kinds of antibiotics yet?
And please, people, like Rita said a minute ago, no angry letters or emails. We're not telling you to walk outside and rub a bird all over your child.
No.
Although that couldn't hurt. Because, I mean, there is even in Europe, they're actually treating a disease where we've basically become too clean. They're actually having to do treatments on people that are too clean. They've basically they've made themselves into the bubble boy or the bubble girl.
But I mean, it's like that here just about with hand sanitizer stuff at the supermarket and all this stuff. And, I'm like, well, have your kids go play in the dirt. Come on. Yeah. I mean,
when are the watermelon seeds going to grow in?
That's right.
There is a 10-second rule, people. Live with it.
Yeah.
Especially with little ones. They're going to stick stuff in their mouth. If you scream every time, then they're just going to be terrified of everything.
Yeah.
But I agree. I don't think I've ever finished a prescription of anything.
Mm-hmm. Now, I did work at Starbucks for a while, and if something fell on the floor there, it stayed on the floor because I knew what happened on those floors, and it wasn't ever a pretty thing, even though the floors got mopped every day.
Right. Yeah. But I'm saying, like, in your own house, and my daughter is constantly, Chloe wouldn't, once she learned to walk, she wasn't allowed to crawl anymore. I just want to take her out and throw dirt on her.
But we build up immunity. I mean, that's where we get our immunity from. And, and they give us these medications for, chickenpox vaccine and mumps vaccine and measles vaccine, so you don't get them. And it's like, okay, but what side effects are you going to get from getting the vaccine? And is it really keeping you, what is it doing to your immune system? Because it's not giving your immune system has no muscles. It's not being worked.
Well, it's like them bringing back the smallpox vaccine. They started, what, 6 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that.
Yeah. And supposedly it had been eradicated.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's coming back, and it's not the same strain. But that's what people don't understand is it's.
Well, and the bad part about that is when I was in school, we had to have it. Eric's younger than me, but not that much younger than me, and they didn't. So there's this whole group, not much younger than me, who's never had the smallpox, and if there's an outbreak, what happens?
Well, and what I was going to say is there's a lot of people that don't understand that it's not us against nature. It's not us against the planet. The sooner we get in tune with the planet, the better off we'll all be. That's where the battle comes between the drug companies and all the other treatments.
Well, the planet was here first. It's going to be here after
Well,
too.
and
So
a lot of the treatments. Would you agree, Rita, that a lot of treatments in your field of work come from a shamanistic background?
Well, I mean, it comes from indigenous background. I wouldn't say it necessarily call it shamanistic.
Okay, well, but what I'm saying, they've been around a lot longer than we have, so they had to have known something.
Right. I mean, they are tried, even though the FDA doesn't agree. They are tested, and but when we're dealing with some of the diseases that we have on the planet now, to be honest with you, I don't know how effective they're going to be. Because, they weren't designed. The planet, I believe that the planet gives us everything we need to heal. But we have distorted our relationship with the planet so much and created these things that are not in alignment with the harmony and balance of the planet that, I don't know that the planet can meet the needs that we have created for ourselves.
well, and how much of what the planet created have we destroyed? And it's either some specific thing is either extinct or so rare you have to go to the high mountain clouds of wherever to find this one little seed you need to cure this.
Mm-hmm. Well, but modern medicine wouldn't necessarily agree that seed would do anything.
Oh,
anyway.
absolutely, yeah.
Well, and it probably wouldn't give you thunderous diarrhea either.
Yeah, I'm thinking a seed doesn't come with a side effect sheet. Side effect sheet.
Yeah.
Well, my experience has been, that herbs, in the general sense of the word, they have certain actions, and they're pretty well documented as far as, their potency, what impact they're going to have. Now, obviously, there are going to be people that might react adversely to them, but they're not trying to kill an ant with a sledgehammer. They are trying to push the ant out the door, kind of thing. And anyway,
Well,
it's just a very different way of thinking about it. But, back in the day when we were using, herbal medicine, or we would, put a cold compress on a person's head if they had a fever, or use a mustard plaster or castor oil packs, and use some of those, I like calling them old school remedies. We weren't carrying this toxic load, which we were talking about before, so it was easier to get changes happening in people.
right. I grew up with Grandma putting the sweet oil in the ear for an earache. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And,
How-
go ahead.
Go ahead.
And now I have a lady who makes a lot of the herbal remedies for the shop. And they are selling like crazy lately.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of your herbs too.
Yeah, a lot of the herbs are going, but I've got like different teas and balms and oils, and that's been my biggest seller lately.
Yeah, I mean, people are starting to come around. I was just fixing to ask you this: how do we get people on the right path, other than hitting them in the head and making them stand in a line and all that kind of good stuff? How do we do this?
Well, I mean, you know, but when you work with, I think there's just kind of a mentality, you know, when you work with herbal remedies and work with alternative healing, you know, it's not a magic bullet. You know,
Right.
it takes time, it takes patience to start to notice changes, you know, and so we have been so brainwashed that if I take this pill, you know, the headache will go away, my nose will stop running, you know, and we're going to get this immediate result. You know, and that's just not how it works with, you know, herbal supplements. I mean, there are some that you'll get some fairly quick response, you know, they tend to be more immediate. But for the most part, you know, it's about getting the body to heal and getting the body to be back in balance. It's not about masking the symptoms. I mean, very much of Western medicine is about masking symptoms and not really healing the cause of the problem in the first place. And so it's a very different look at and focus on health and healing.
What are your feelings? I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but how do you feel about some of the older, like the Chinese forms of healing, the Chinese acupuncture?
I mean, I think acupuncture is great. You know, I think, you know, there's acupuncture and then there is Chinese herbal medicine, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. You know, I wish you know, if I could pronounce half of the herbs that they have in their stuff, but I can't even pronounce any of them. You know, their formulations are wonderful. And I think that in the West, we are really missing and lacking by not incorporating more of their herbal medicine into our coffers of health and healing. You know, because they just look at the body in a very different way. And they're really about balancing it out and bringing it back into alignment, where we're more about giving it nutrition. And, you know, it's just a very different perspective.
Yeah.
But it's good stuff. Love it.
And we need to pay more attention to them because they always have the world's oldest person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That and what is it in Yugoslavia where they have the yogurt? Those people always live very long too.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
You know, what's with that?
Those yogurt people.
You know, but if you think about it, though, you know, the people that live for a really long time, they never live in an inner city. They always live out in the boondocks somewhere, and they got to carry, you know, the pail of water 3 miles from the stream to their house 3 times a day. Yeah. I mean, those are the kinds of things that keep us healthy.
Yeah. And people have gotten so... Is spoiled a good word?
Lazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's... Yeah, there's a certain point in time when everybody needs to kind of step back and look at their life and what they're doing and how they're eating and what they're consuming. And you may not... You don't necessarily have to kick the door in and change everything, but before you do what would be just a, you know, knee-jerk reaction to go buy like a Starbucks or something, think of maybe a healthier way. Maybe try a tea instead of the coffee with all the sugar in it. You know what I mean? It's just those kind of things that if people did, they would be surprised how much better they do feel.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you know, sugar consumption in the United States is pretty rampant. And I think if people just cut out the sugar or cut back the sugar, cut back the carbs, that they would start to feel a lot better. I mean... Yeah. You know, it's really a sad state of affairs when you go to the supermarket and the produce section is one of the smallest areas, and, you know, what gets the most shelf space are these chemical-filled, carbohydrate food things that they try to tell us are good for us. I mean, I just was commenting the other day, you know, they had this, I think it's Crave cereal. It's little s'mores.
Yes.
You know, like a little graham cracker outside with chocolate and marshmallow inside.
Yep.
who is eating that crap for breakfast? It's like, well, I might as well just have a chocolate chip cookie because I'm sure it would taste better with a glass of milk. Then I have like a well-balanced meal, I guess.
Well,
I don't know.
And now they're putting chocolate and yogurt covered this and all that kind of stuff. I mean, when we were little, if there was one of those hard Lucky Charm marshmallows in there, that was a treat. It was cornflakes, with the rooster on the box. Cornflakes.
When I have two stepkids, and when I first moved in with them, I mean, their mom would feed them like Hamburger Helper and hot dogs and chips and crap, just crap. And it took a long time to retrain their taste buds to not need to have that taste of chemical and salt. And they thought, they used to like look at what I'd make and they're like, it doesn't taste good. And I would just look at them and say, I don't make food that tastes bad. I said, you guys just have bad taste. And now they really appreciate, my cooking. They really appreciate, having been brought up with something other than Hamburger Helper. Now they both are actually very good cooks. And one of them went from, I won't even like have broccoli on my plate, or cauliflower or basically the boy lived on because he had to have a vegetable, green beans and salad. And that was it. Green beans and salad, but at least I got something green into him, and corn and peas did not count. And now he's like into this whole healthy living thing and like eats broccoli and cauliflower and mushrooms. I'm like, who are you? Did the aliens get you? I mean, it's just a complete turnaround because he literally, I think, ate pizza his entire year of being 16. Every day he had pizza. His hair started falling out, but he had pizza.
Well, you'd appreciate this. My daughter actually went to school in 4th grade and told her teacher that she was being abused at home because she had never had a TV dinner.
That's okay. My kids would go to school and they would have, time on the computer, and they'd get on the internet and they would go to my web pages and go, this is my stepmom. She's a psychic. Like, thanks.
Okay.
Like, I'm sure, they wanted me to come to the school.
I know you have some very exciting stuff coming up. Did you want to talk about that?
Okay. So yeah, I have a whole huge list.
Well, get working.
Okay. So next weekend, and I was told I wasn't saying this right, but I don't know, I've been calling it Weird Fest, Texas, but apparently that's not the name. It's, I don't even know.
Do you know where it's at?
It's in Glen Rose. It's Texas. It's not Weird Fest. I don't know. I'm calling it Weird Fest, Texas because it sounds better. It's next Saturday, March 21st. It's in Glen Rose, Texas. April 16th, I'll be speaking at the History, Haunts, and Legends Conference. That's Saturday, April 12th in spooky Jefferson, Texas, one of my favorite places.
And we will be there with you.
So you're not going to be in Glen Rose?
No, we will. No, we won't be in Glen Rose this year, but we will be in Jefferson.
Okay. And then, this is kind of not in the area, but I'll be in Pensacola, Florida on April 13th, speaking to a group. April 26th is the Tyler Paranormal Conference. God, I got a busy April. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. And then in August 16th, I'll be in Collinsville, Illinois at the Ancient Mysteries International Conference, where they're talking about the Golden Age, past and future.
Awesome.
Do you need a roadie for Pensacola?
Actually, they're flying me out Sunday morning, and I don't know when they're flying me back. Yeah, because I'm going to be in Jefferson Saturday,
right.
And they're flying me out the next morning.
Youch.
That's okay. It'll be wham bam. I'll be done. I'll be home. It's all good.
Well, plus you'll get to go through DFW, and that's always a pleasurable experience.
Well, I'm kind of hoping they send me through Love Field. I'm kind of.
Well, they might.
Well, if they were real nice, they'd just pick you up here in Longview and then shuttle you up.
Yeah.
Just
That's kind of a long trip, isn't it?
No, it's like 30 minutes with one of the little puddle jumpers.
Yeah, you get to get on a plane with a propeller and everything.
It goes up, it
They
goes
don't
down, and
even
you're
have
already.
jets.
It goes up.
Oh. Okay.
Well, with everything that you've got going on, do you also have some training and a pamphlet and a book that's also coming out with that too, coming soon?
Yeah, I mean the book is already available. So the Institute of Applied Energetics. So I offer a professional level training program, certification training program for anyone interested in becoming a energy medicine practitioner, intuitive counselor, or medical intuitive. And there's actually a course for people if they're interested in just working on themselves, opening themselves up to their intuition, personal growth kind of thing. There's a course on that. But before anybody does anything, they can go to the site, and there is a 50-page download that is available now on the site. It's called Jumpstart Your Intuition. It talks about the whole concept of intuition and subtle energy. And there's some little exercises in there that are hands-on to give you the look and feel. You get to try to do like a little psychic reading in there, which is very fun. And that is on the website is www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. Now, we're in the last stages of tweaking the website, and I've been having some speed issues on there. So if it's a little glitchy, we haven't officially launched, and this is the first time I'm actually announcing this on the air. We're hoping to launch officially next week, but that Jumpstart Your Intuition book is there, is available, and if people want to go ahead and download it, go for it.
Well, you're going to be seen by millions. You're being seen by millions right now live.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. They just need to know that we've been having some back-end issues on the site. But if they want to go ahead and download that booklet, Jumpstart Your Intuition today at the Institute of Applied Energetics. And so you can go directly to that site. I know that's kind of long, and so if you go to my primary website, www.soulhealer.com, you'll see a little banner on the side that says, Institute of Applied Energetics. Click on that. It'll take you to the site. You can get the book, blah, blah, blah. Check it out, the whole new look and feel. I mean, actually, for how much I hate WordPress, the site actually came out looking pretty freaking cool. So I'm happy, except it's glitchy, but it's all good. It's all good.
It's always good because Dr. Rita Louise said so.
Yeah.
Either that or she'll throw a clicky Sharpie marker at it.
No, she will not, because she likes her clicky Sharpie markers, and you better bring it back to her.
Well, but I might draw cool little paisley patterns on people. That could happen.
Yeah.
No.
While they're not looking on accident.
It happens.
Really.
Twice.
It happens.
So everybody, if you're at HHL or at the Tyler Paracon, be careful. You could walk out paisley.
That's right.
That's right.
Or Glenrose. I guess in Glenrose you might do paisleys too.
It can happen.
It can happen.
You don't know.
Rita, it's always such a pleasure talking to you. I wish we could just have you on every week, because then it would just be, we could just keep this going.
Okay.
All right. I won't have to book anybody else. You don't have. It may be my job so easy.
Thanks.
No,
Thanks. I'm
kidding.
still working on. Oh, my show, Just Energy Radio, Thursdays, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. www.justenergyradio.com. I just put up the fall. No, what season are we coming into? Spring schedule, and so that just went up this week.
Who's coming up next? Who's coming up next on Just Energy Radio?
I don't know. Somebody. Hold on 1 second.
Some person talking about something they do.
Somebody talking about something. I got some pretty good people lined up. Okay, that didn't happen. Marie Jones and Susan Shumsky is next week. But I just got confirmed with, all right, check this out. All right, I got Jesse Ventura again, but you want to hear a really cool one? I just booked Uri Geller.
Ooh.
Is he still alive?
Apparently.
So now
somebody hooked me up with him, and I'm like,
wow,
okay.
Is he? If he's got to be in his 80s. What is he bending? Plastic spoons or?
I don't know. I haven't talked to him yet. I've just emailed a little bit. That was just confirmed today.
That's awesome. That would be a good show. That'd be a very interesting show.
He's bending sporks.
Yeah.
Sporks.
Spork bender. But if you watch The Matrix, there is no spork. Never mind.
And you live with him, right?
Yeah, right. She tolerates me sometimes.
I think I got sucked into this one.
But Rita, once again, thank you for joining us. Everybody go.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody go to justenergyradio.com every Tuesday.
Thursday.
So one of us paid attention.
I'm tired. Thursday, at 8 p.m.
8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And we will see her in 3 weeks.
Yep.
Yay.
HHL. So everybody, if you're going out this weekend, be careful. Take care of yourself. Be sure and take a pen and take notes about what you're doing.
And if you're in East Texas, take an umbrella because apparently it's going to get ugly after midnight.
And if you happen to be in the Gladewater area tomorrow at about 6-ish, be sure to stop by Metaluna Boutique and Stones. We are having our weekly Half Mooners meetup.
Our bi-monthly
Or
Half Mooners
regular.
meetup.
So be sure to come out and join us for that tomorrow night. And with that, I think we're going to get out of here.
We are going to skedaddle. Thank you all very much for joining us. And don't forget, live shows every night. And Wednesday and Thursday are birthdays of PEN and PEMAtv.
Yep.
Yay!
Good night, y'all.
Night.
guest tonight because we love her to death, because she's cute as a button.
She is.
2, she can talk about just about anything intelligently with just about anybody, except for the people that aren't intelligent. You can't help them at all.
Right. And 3, she introduced me to the coolest Sharpie click marker ever.
Yeah, that's true. Tonight we are talking with Dr. Rita Louise. Dr. Rita Louise, how are you?
I'm good, but I'm laughing about the click marker thing.
Hey,
but it is true. It is true, and it was hot pink.
And after you let me borrow it that day, I had to rush out and get my own.
Well, what color did you get?
I got the black ones, but it was a 2-pack, so it was a good deal.
Okay.
And real quick, let me get this out of the way. Normally, I can fit our guest graphic all on one deal. I can't do that with Dr. Rita. I can put her.
Are you trying to say I have a big head?
No, I'm trying to say that you have a lot going on.
It's your websites, not your face.
So if you would, be sure to take a look at www.soulhealer.com. Our radio show, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that, justenergyradio.com. And AppliedEnergeticsInstitute.com. Did I butcher that too bad?
Nope, that was perfect.
Awesome. What have you been up to? Because the last time we saw you was last October, and I know a lot of things have been going on. Or November.
Mm-hmm. Well, apparently she didn't want to answer that question.
I'm sure we'll be getting her back here just shortly.
Hey.
Hey, gotta love that. So, the last time we saw you was in November, early November?
Yeah, and I would like to say that all this really great stuff has been going on. I've written 4 new books, all kinds of good stuff, but that would be a lie. I'll share the truth. The truth is that for some reason my site got hit bad by the last Google update, and I have been frantically redesigning web pages and moving everything to WordPress. That was a hiss.
Yes.
And going through this whole learning curve of figuring out WordPress and reinventing everything. So that's what I've been doing for the last few months. But, sometimes you go and things come crashing down around you, and what comes out the other side is actually bigger and better and even cooler. And I think that's how it's all, the cards are going to lay out. Thank God.
Yeah. People, you have to keep your eye on the prize, and you have to be willing to do the work in anything. And some people have trouble with that part of it. Have you I know Kim's got the book right here. One of the books that you have written.
I have my autographed book from Rita Louise.
Is The Power Within.
Mm-hmm.
How many books have you actually penned, Rita?
4. So The Power Within was actually my first book. And then I wrote Avoiding the Cosmic 2x4, then Dark Angels, An Insider's Guide to Ghosts, Spirits, and Attached Entities. And then my latest book is Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, which actually did get picked up by a mainstream publisher and will be re-released as the E.T. Chronicles in October,
Nice.
I think.
Very nice.
I know, it was sweet. It was like, okay, I'll let you pick it up.
Well, so, I got your book, The Power Within, a Psychic Healing Primer, in an auction.
Well, aren't you special?
I was, because it was last year at the Unity Fest.
Ah, cool.
So all the money went to breast cancer, so.
Hey, I got a psychic reading from Misha, so it was all good.
Yeah. How'd that go for you? Was it informative?
Actually, there was an issue that I had been struggling with for months, and the way she framed how I was reacting to the issue was like, oh my God. Because, she was basically relaying to me things that I've said to my clients over and over and over and over again. And it was, so I knew exactly what she was talking about, but it let me shift. It let me just kind of let go of what I was holding on to and move on, which was great. That was what I needed to hear. And the funniest part was, doing psychic readings is what I do. I have a lot of friends that are psychic, so if I have issues going on, I just call them up. It's like, hey, can you take a look at this? And we were at that event, and they were offering the psychic reading, and the next thing I knew, my hand was flying in the air. I was like, what the...
Yeah, but every once in a while, having in this field, we all have like a lot of psychic friends, but every once in a while, you just kind of need that outsider's insight on it.
Well, plus most, and Rita, tell me if this is true, most extremely spiritual people or psychic readers, mediums, life coaches, whatever you need to tag, you need to put on them. Haven't you found that they're people too, and they're hard-headed and don't want to change, and everything that they complain about, sometimes they're doing the same thing sometimes?
Well, I think, I mean, I do think that that's true, but I think also in the same breath, if they can recognize, and have somebody reflect back to them what they're doing, in a place where they understand, it's like, oh, okay, they can change very quickly, if they understand,
Right.
and that's what that session did for me. It was just like, oh,
Kind of a forest for the trees kind of thing.
yeah, sometimes. I mean, for me in that situation, it definitely was, there were a lot of feelings involved that were hurt. My feelings were very hurt. And she reflected back how I was responding with my hurt feelings and was like, screw that. I'm just going to let that go. So it's all good. So, yeah.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to PEMA TV.
Welcome to Fridays, March 14th, 2014. Already.
Yep, almost St. Patrick's Day.
Yikes.
Lots of green. But it's also like coming up on the summer solstice will be in here in how long? A couple months?
Summer, yeah. In
What happens in springtime? I forget.
spring solstice.
Is there a spring solstice?
Yeah,
No, I didn't know that. They got one for every month, every season?
yeah.
Man, the pagans, they think of everything.
What day was I born on?
I don't know.
Spring solstice.
20th, the 20th,
Spring solstice.
20th of March,
Spring
at
solstice.
45 a.m.
7:41.
That's close. Not many other guys could even get that close. I heard get some kudos for that.
But what you omitted to mention was, as of the 18th, will be our PEN's 4-year anniversary.
That's like forever in there next year.
The 19th, the day after that, is PEMA TV's 5th year.
Yep. Amazing. We're either slow learners or you guys actually like us.
Or you tolerate very well.
And speaking of things that people like, you need to go on to MetalunaBoutiqueandStones.com. Check out the great items that Kim has there. Right now, I'm going to show you just a partial picture of her herb and spices collection.
Yes, that is one half.
Yeah. So you probably carry what, 85 altogether?
I think I have 85 different herbs, and then I have 4 or 5 spell kits, and now I have the whole herbal solutions. I have the oils for the 4 elements, and I have a lot of the spell oils too now.
So be sure and check that out. But without further ado, because people get to hear from us all the time, and I know people on Facebook get tired of seeing me,